Okay. Hello and welcome to the Michael Mamas Show. I'm Michael Mamas, and we're coming to you from Mount Soma, home of the Sri Someshwara Temple in the mountains of western North Carolina. And, I've been getting uh, a lot of people writing in or some calling in, and people are scared. People are worried. They're looking at the way the world is and the way our country is right now and all the conflicts and arguing and hatred and everything. And, I've talked about it, haven't I, in past podcasts, if you've listened in. Um, but, I've explained about how, this is a phase transition and it's in the Jyotish, it's in the numerology. I even, on one of my uh, blogs at michaelmamas.net, I even put a link to a numerology thing by Hans Dikus that really went into detail about it, saying the same thing from a numerology perspective. And so we're in a phase transition now, but over the next few years, it's going to get better, better, better. And like Hans was saying in his article, 1,000 years from now, they're going to be looking back at this time as a major phase transition, to a golden age. And so that's what's going on. And people hear that. And it's an interesting principle, really, because they can believe it. Okay, I hear it, makes sense, I get it. And that's called the I get it syndrome in a way, because what that is it's kind of like an overlay. And if you've been told something, then it's just an overlay. It's when you find it in yourself and you resonate with it from deep within your own being where it makes sense. And sense is a great word, because you're sensing it, you're feeling it. And as I've said in the past, that thoughts are more superficial than feelings. Uh, what you think matters little, how you feel about those thoughts, that's what makes all the difference. And so it's common sense. When you sense into, because what lies deeper than feeling? The transcendent. Uh, Mother Nature, God, the unified field, however you want to put it. So the portal from our superficial thoughts and identities and paradigms, the portal we go through to reach divinity is feelings. And I'm not talking about superficial feelings, emotions. I'm talking about something deeper, the fine feelings, the finest feelings, the refinement of the psyche, the refinement of our being, to the point where it seamlessly merges with that transcendental depth that dwells within all of us. The kingdom of heaven dwells within. That's what that's all about. But somebody wrote in, and I thought, I'm just going to read it to you because I thought it was well written and really to the point and so representative of what so many of us are feeling. She said, with everything going on, and then I edited it a little bit, in the world, in a way that appears, and then she puts in quotes, what's right is wrong and what's wrong is right. Now, I don't even want to just skim over that, because it's like, does anybody really know what time it is, that song? Does anybody really know what's going on? All these different perspectives, and they're passionate, and some of them, you hear that perspective and what are they thinking? How can they possibly think that? Um, uh, and so it's like, what's wrong is being pushed as right. And then what's right is being attacked as wrong. And the real perplexing thing is, depending on which side of the fence you're on, the whole thing flips. What you think is right, you're being attacked for. And people are insistent that it's wrong, and vice versa. And I mean, how can that happen? I mean, the rebellion is so intense, and it's instilling. I'm telling you, it's instilling fear in people. People are writing me, and they're terrified. they don't know what to do and they don't know what to think. And they can't imagine what tomorrow may bring, you know? Um, and all I can say is that we have to try to look deeper. We have to try to be more insightful. We need to take a step back, really, and get insight, number one, into how a human mind functions. And, I look back at my podcast, right in the very beginning, I talked about mapping, I talked about identity, different things like that. And really, those are fundamental principles that apply across the board to almost everything in life. And so we do well, and it's not easy, but we do well to take a step back and look at the perspectives that we become indoctrinated into, we become identified with. And realize that a lot of these things we hold on to as truth, we don't hold on to them as truth because we've gone deep inside and reflected from the depth of our soul and our inner wisdom. We think those ways and we feel passionately about these different perspectives because of the people we associate with, because of what we've been indoctrinated into believing. And we just can't let it go. And we're absolutely convinced that if anybody thinks a different way, they're absolutely horrible. But now, what does this mean? Does that mean it's a no holds barred, anything goes, and it's all just indoctrination? Well, no, it doesn't mean that. What it means is that we've got to get past the surface and we've got to find an inner wisdom in that deep place within our own soul. And it doesn't happen overnight. The culturing of that is a long process. But nevertheless, we can, in the short run, just have a little humility about our perspectives and at least hear the other perspective and try to understand where they're coming from. And at first it may be like, where in the world are they coming from? How can they possibly? But understand as best you can, and then see if there's some resolution in there where we can all come together without just trying to ramrod our position. And I've also talked about how there's a cycle to time. There's a cycle to life, The sun rises, the sun sets, the electron goes up and down, and everything cycles. And there are big, huge cycles called yugas, and there are smaller cycles. And we ride the roller coaster, if you've heard that podcast, we ride the roller coaster of those cycles. But what I say is it's those cycles, you can almost look at it like they're wood structures. They're made and it's like a roller coaster, and okay, here we go. We're going to be going, we're climbing a mountain. Oh my God, now we're going to tumble down to the next, and all like that. But the thing is that what we have is I compared it like a carpet or a tarp or something covering those roller coasters. And so there's a certain amount of buffer between those roller coaster rides and how we ride them based upon if the carpet is like a parachute, and so we just kind of gently glide down, or if it's caught in intense winds of Carmen, it's banging against the roller coaster as it goes down. So there's some freedom there, and the question then goes on. It says it's hard to see how the golden age will start to come in. I hear that way, and that's basically a synopsis of what I've been talking about. Then she says, it's occurred to me that when listening to your podcast on the Big Bang of the brain, now what is the Big Bang of the brain? According to Darwin, we all gravitate Well, according to Darwin, it's just survival of the fittest. There is no gravitation involved. And just random chance over time, uh, species evolve. Because due to a mutation, an accident in the genetic code being passed from one generation to the next, what have you, just randomly a more fit species comes along, a more fit organism, and so it tends to survive while the other less fit uh, don't survive. And through many, many years, what happens is you end up with more evolved species until ultimately a human being. And I've said in the past, and this is important, we're going to expand on this here, but computer studies have said it can't be, happened too fast. Something's missing with Darwin's theory. And what I say is what's missing is that there's this underlying unified field of infinite coherence, infinite harmony, infinite intelligence, and it's the source that created and maintains this whole universe. And that's at every point in creation. It supports everything in creation. And so what it's doing is it's enticing, it's pushing, pulling, however you want to say it, the evolution of species in a direction that conforms with or relies upon this inner intelligence that accelerates the movement of the evolution of species in a direction. So it's gravitating back to source. Now, what happens in the evolutionary process is, okay, you've got these organisms and they're evolving, you know, fish to lizards to this to that, and to monkeys, and then to apes, and then more and more involved. And all of a sudden, through anthropological studies and skeletons that they found, they discovered that there was this moment where, boom, all of a sudden the brain just took off. Brains got bigger. They evolved exponentially fast in anthropological terms. And they don't understand why. And from the perspective of Vedic science and the ancient masters, what happened is that slowly it was gravitating until it could actually have a brain that was capable of sustaining the totality of the wisdom, intellect, coherence, all like that within the absolute itself, within the source itself. And so then, boom, it's like before it was just being gravitated in. Now all of a sudden it's plugged in. So the species just evolved really, really quickly. You see? And that's what's happened with human beings. But now the challenge is, how do we use that? You know, we have a species that's capable of maintaining that, but we need to learn how to use it wisely. And so far, we haven't. But here's how that works. Nature tolerates so much. You know, the pendulum swings one way, and then it just can't go any further, and then it swings the other way. And right now, what's going on, and you don't have to have all this cosmic perspective that I'm just sharing, but I think it helps give insight. But just common sense. Look at the world. That pendulum is swung so far in this direction. You know, nature can't take anymore, and the people can't take it anymore. People have had it. This is nuts. There's just too much craziness going on. That pendulum is just wound up tight on the drum, and it's ready to swing back the other way. And isn't it interesting that that's what the Jyotish is saying? That's what the numerology is saying. That's what Lord Krishna is saying. So from that perspective, if you just think about it a little bit, you don't have to take my word for it, or the Jyotish or numerology or any of that, even though it's nice to get the validation. But it's going to change. This is it. And it's what's been predicted. Lord Krishna predicted it 5,000 years ago, for goodness sake. He said, this is the time it's going to happen. And so we're going into a golden age. But right now, that phase transition, as I've said, is really, really rocky. And just like, you know, in chemistry, water, when it freezes into ice, there's that moment at 32 degrees Fahrenheit, 0 centigrade. where it just becomes very, very turbulent. And we're experiencing the turbulence now. But now here's the good news, is that curve, what they say is that curve, where we're going through this and the pendulum is swinging and, oh gosh, it's all really, once that shift happens, it becomes like a sawtooth curve. So you've got, things are going downhill, getting weirder and weirder, and people are just, seems like nuts and all hating each other and everything. Of course, we don't hate the people we collude with. We only hate the people that don't collude with us. That's another story. But worse and worse and worse. But then once it shifts, once that pendulum starts going the other way, it picks up momentum really fast and just vroom, sawtooth curve, like this, and boom. So once we start getting a little momentum in the positive direction, which we are in the process of getting right now, it's going to happen fast. But the question goes on here, and because it really covers a lot here. Because she's saying with the big bang of the brain, she's saying perhaps it will happen not through people purposely changing their way of thinking and reacting, but rather through a shift that evolves the way our brains function. Well, yes, and we just talked about that. It'll be kind of like another big bang in the brain. But the thing to realize is that everything is interconnected. It's not just about human beings and thinking differently and boom. It's about all of nature. It's about the very fabric of nature itself. How can I give you a feeling for it? I mean, I just remember back in back when Carter was president, there was a certain feeling, it seemed like, in the atmosphere. And then during the hippie era, there was a feeling in the atmosphere. During the 80s, the atmosphere just changes. And if you go way back, the atmosphere can be extremely different. But that atmosphere is not just, what I'm trying to say is that atmosphere is not just a function of how people are thinking in the moment, but it's greater than people. It's the roller coaster. It's not the carpet gliding on the surface of the roller coaster, just. And so what determines all that is a whole interconnected, vast network of the totality of existence. It has to do with the Jyotish of the time. It has to do with the karma of the people. It has to do with the mentality of the people. And now here's the thing. You can, and this is another important point, you can look at it, and people do, from the perspective that, it's all about the shift of how we're thinking. Oh, we're thinking better now. Oh, we're not thinking that well back then. And that can almost get to be kind of like the tail wagging the dog. We look for these structures that kind of weave through existence, weave through life, and say, oh, there's the principle. And there's the principle finally reveals it all. There was somebody sent me a link the other day. It was talking about 11 and the cosmic number 11, and then 11 and 11 is 22, and you find it in ancient texts and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, probably so. But the thing is, there are all kinds of threads like that going through. And here's the thing, if you get too caught up in any one of those threads, then you lose the forest for the trees, and you're caught up in a principle, which these principles are good, don't get me wrong, but you lose the big picture, you lose the forest. And the big picture is what we're talking about in this podcast. That's the big picture. And that's something we can hang our hat on, and that's something that the ancient seers, the ancient masters have given to us, So it is a shift in the function of people's brains. It is a shift in perspective, and it's a shift in so much more, and that's what's happening now. And that's so what's going to bring on the golden age? It's a total interconnected mess. We have a way of functioning. We're taught to think in kind of a linear way. A goes to B, goes to C, goes to D. Nature doesn't work that way. Nature is more of a lattice structure, right down to the structure of the foundation of existence itself. The mathematical basis of life, of modern physics, the mathematical basis for that is the same as the mathematical structure of crystals. Only it's infinite as opposed to crystals, which are based on a small number of variables. Point being, though, it's a lattice structure. It's crystalline. And so we can try to find these threads that weave through, and that's fine. But we need to understand that the big picture is much more than that. And we have the ability, you see, to function on that level, to think in that way as human beings. But we've kind of been indoctrinated not to. You know, we take these, well, we'd have to say simplistic, sort of linear A to B to C to D models, and we try to find the model that's going to explain all life and existence, and we're just chasing our tails. It just doesn't work that way, you know. It's also important to keep in mind that, you know, we think we're going to figure it out. We think we're going to find a solution, what have you. And then we get caught up in this idea of, well, is this my free will, or is it predetermined? And it's really important to get a grip with the understanding that you don't know. We do our best. We have to do our best. But at the same time, how much of what's going on in your emotions and in your intellect and in your perspectives is a function of just karma, predetermined, versus your own inner wisdom, your own inner free will. And it feels to us that we're free. I'm free to lift my hand up or not. I'm free to do whatever I want. But really, just because it feels like free will doesn't necessarily mean that it is. And so a lot of what's going on the surface here about these guys mad at these guys and all that, it's a karmic upheaval. And that's what's determining the nature of the carpet or tarp as it flows up and down the roller coaster of the cycles of life, you know. I think it's important that we just understand that about life. So you see, paradigm identity precludes understanding. A little humility around our paradigm identities goes a long way, you know. You can take everything I've said here and you can put it in a box and say, okay, I get what he's saying, and I'm putting it in a box, I'm going to put it on my shelf. I'm telling you, that's not what this is about. We've got enough boxes with different perspectives all stacked in the shelves of our closets that we think we get. And maybe a lot of them belong there. But to really cultivate wisdom and knowledge and insight is to begin to function from that place of inner wisdom, that common sense. Even deeper than common sense is wisdom. Wisdom is just refined common sense, you see, and to actually function from that. And it's not just an attitude. It's not just a philosophy. It's a physiological state. It's a state of being. And the most powerful tool to cultivate that, there are two things. Number one is meditation, by far, proper meditation. You go on YouTube, type in my name, go to my YouTube channel, and right there, the first couple of things that come up will teach you how to meditate, a good, proper meditation. See, there are meditations that will teach you how to program your mind, control your mind, and all kinds of meditations. You want a meditation that allows the mind to rest naturally into the divinity, the perfection of its own inner nature, that source that underlies everything. And that's what that meditation offers, okay? So I'm not really asking you to believe, you know, what I'm saying, but I'm encouraging you to find truth within yourself. And Meditation is the main tool. The other tool is just to think and reflect and ponder with a little humility. And hopefully these podcasts and the things I'm saying here will help with that. Not because you take it on as another identity, another overlay, but you use it to till the soil of your own awareness, to take a step back and look at life. And I think it's particularly important that we see, there's so much, talking about interconnected, rely on these teachings of these rishis, these ancient seers, these ancient masters. And that's where the whole notion of Vedic knowledge comes in, because there's a technique called cognition. There's something that's done called cognition. And cognition is an extremely rare thing. But what cognition is in ancient times, there were these individuals whose physiologies were so pure that they were able to allow their awareness to rest into the depth of the transcendent, and that inner working, that inner mechanic of the transcendent, that structure, that dynamism that dwells there at the depth of all existence, would well up through their physiologies and out their vocal cords. That's called Vedic cognition. Actually went through all their senses, but out their vocal cords. People heard that, and they knew it was fantastic stuff, and so they memorized it. And to this day, in Vedic temples, what you have is these guys called pundits that have been learning to do those chants, those repetitions from the time they were 5 years old, called Vedic cognition. And the Sri Someshwara temple, just stone's throw from here, that's what they do every day. And so what are those doing? What is that? What are those chants doing? They're sounds that resonate with and then infuse into the environment that infinite coherence underlying all of existence. And so there we have the cognitions of the rishis. Now rishis, to say they're guys who purified their physiology is really an understatement, because here's something else. And I mean, this stuff, you got to think about it, because at first glance, it's so inconsistent with what we've been indoctrinated to believe from childhood, and then we hear that, oh, that's too far out. But here's what rishis are. Rishis are mechanisms in the mechanics of creation that uphold as the structure and the intelligence contained within that underlying basis wells up through all different levels of existence. Rishis are upholders of the coherence, the intelligence. In Vedic, they would call it dharma, the path of dharma, harmony with nature, fulfilling life, And so they're the upholders of dharma. That's what rishis are. And we have their cognitions. That's incredible. Now, contained in those cognitions is everything about life. Everything. And there's one little branch I'll tell you about Vedic cognition called Sthapatya Ved. And what that deals with is architecture of the whole universe, the structure of the whole universe from kind of like a cosmically architectural perspective. And the mouthpiece, I don't know how to say it, the organizing power, the structure of that for the whole cosmos is called Vishwakarma. And all these things have personified correlates. Vishwakarma then has a personified correlate, a being, you see? But now there's another kind of a guy, you could say, a rishi, if you want to say it this way, that worked for Vishwakarma. You're kind of being playful here while I'm talking. But that's called Mamuni Mayan. Mamuni Mayan is a rishi, it's a mechanic of creation, but Mamuni Mayan, too, of course, has a personified correlate. And that personified correlate of Mamuni Mayan walked the earth at one time. And he wrote his cognitions. They did it on palm leaves. And contained in Mamuni Mayan's cognitions were instructions of how to build a unified field generator. That's where it came from, Mamuni Mayan. Now, it's interesting that those cognitions of Mamuni Mayan have been sitting on a shelf somewhere. I don't know where they were, but thousands of years, untranslated, unused. And interestingly enough, there's a Vedic architect, famous, probably arguably the most recognized, I would think, Stapati in India. And he has those cognitions on palm leaves. And he has translated them. Incredible. And he translated how to build this unified field generator that breathes coherence and harmony into all existence. And according to Mamuni Mayan, if we had one of those on each continent, it would be enough to maintain harmony and peace and coherence and common sense and wisdom on the whole globe, on the whole planet. And that Stapati is, I mean, this is, well, is it luck or is it just the way the roller coaster's flowing, you know? What's the difference, really? But that Stapati is the Stapati that designed our Sri Someshwara temple. All according to Mamuni Mayan, all in harmony with nature, pure Stapatya Ved. And it was amazing to witness them come and build it. But at any rate, that's who we have these plans for. And he made the plans for us. We have the plans. We have the ground upon which to complete the building of this enlightened city that Mamuni Mayan described. And that's what we're trying to do. That's our purpose. That's our goal. That's what this is all about, you know. And I've been trying to get that done. But, you know, to really complete the whole thing, I think we probably have $30 or $40 million invested so far total, all the different people. And it's going to be another 100, 150, probably more like 150 million to really complete the essence of the unified field generator. But I think it's good to know that that's what this is about. Now, people have also been asking a lot of questions about the yugas and about these ages and how long do the yugas last. You know, there's that Sat Yuga, which is the age of enlightenment, and it just evolves through 3 different yugas. Right now we're in the last one, which is Kali Yuga, which is the age of ignorance. And then again, Lord Krishna now is saying that this is the time period, we're going to have a brief period, maybe 1,000 years or so, of Sat Yuga in the midst of Kali Yuga. And a lot of people ask, well, how many years? And from one cognition, the yugas are 472,000 years apiece. And all 4 of those together create one Mahayuga. And we're in the, 27th? I think it is 27th or 28th, 27th Mahayuga right now for Earth. But here's the thing. In those cognitions, we can't really say for sure. 472,000 years, is that based on planet Earth and what a year is, 365 days, 24 hours as we measure it now, or not? And we really don't know. But if you go online or whatever and search how long these are, different people are saying different things, and we can get into the space where who's right, who's wrong. It depends on what globe of thought, call it a planet if you want, they're measuring time by. And in particularly now in the West, in the modern mentality, you know, we're very much fact oriented. And so we want to know the facts, how many years. Really in Vedic knowledge, it's more about concept. It's more about abstraction. It's more about an understanding than some literal memorization of facts. It's not about facts. Facts are like dots on a page, I like to say. And it's all about how you connect the dots. And that requires wisdom to connect them properly. And like we know, if you connect the dots on these little things you'll see in the back of magazines, you connect them one way, you see the face of Jesus, you connect the dots a different way, and it's just the back of a Dalmatian dog, So facts really, they don't matter as much as we think. What's that expression? It's kind of like with statistics, There are lies, there are darn lies, and there's statistics, So you say the same thing about facts, really. It's how you weave them together. Now, people have also, and I'm answering some questions here. Well, for one, it's interesting because I talked about the Big Bang of the brain. I wanted to throw this in. I see my notes here. When cosmic awareness comes in, okay, in other words, the resonating with the transcendental depth of infinite intelligence, like that, it comes in through the brain. And it comes in as a spiral. You notice people's bodies are there's a little subtle spiral in people's bodies. That's because that's how the soul, if you will, comes in. And that's also how communion then with what's greater comes in. Now, there's a lot to say here. That's why a lot of times people will think that, God is above. Well, that's a mapping, because that's how it comes into the physiology. But also, God is everywhere. And also, it's the depth of the soul. But at any rate, I got a question about the Sumerians. You probably maybe heard of the Sumerians. They were around, I don't know, I'm guessing 5,000 years ago or more in like Iran, Iraq area. And they built these incredible structures, and someone translated they have tons of texts from the Sumerians, and they translated them, and they talk about the Anunnaki and how the Anunnaki came in from above and gave them knowledge and revered gold and all like that. And so the thinking then from a lot of people, or I don't know how many people, they think, well, the Anunnaki must have been UFO people. When they were talking about the Anunnaki coming in from above, they were talking about that experience of getting knowledge, wisdom, and also an appreciation of gold, because that's a whole other discussion of what gold really is. But let me just say that the unique properties of gold aren't just limited to the fact that it doesn't tarnish, Gold has a place in the very nature and structure of existence. It's a whole other lecture. And I could do it sometime, but I mean, maybe all this is just too much to talk about, all at once. People wonder too about the UFOs, and oh boy, this is all pretty far-reaching, and I don't mean to stretch it too much in one talk, but they talk about UFOs, and question comes up: can people from other planets come here and breed with humans? There are, obviously. I mean, they put Galileo in prison for coming up with the telescope, and I think he was the one who was saying the world's round and all this stuff. I don't know. They put him in prison. That speaks to the mentality of the human mind, not just back then, but we still have the same basic mentality. And so when we talk about radical ideas, people just, even though they're in the cognitions, they're in the Veda, people might think, oh, that's too far out. No, I can't buy that. And what they're really saying is my paradigm identity is too limited to assimilate that. But yeah, of course. The universe is highly populated with different species. Now, can any of them inbreed with human beings? All right. We have a very limited anthropological understanding of what it means to be human. And if you look at the ancient Vedic literature, they had flying machines. They had something called the Siddhis. The Siddhis are something that now we just think of Superman or Wonder Woman or something, and we just can't buy it. But when the physiology becomes sufficiently refined, there are these things called Siddhis, which to us sound like, supernatural powers. And it's through the Siddhis that long time ago, human beings went to other planets. They probably colonized other planets. If they didn't colonize them, they're inhabiting them, and they can return back here, and they will. But the idea is that the world's so screwed up right now that they don't want to be out among the people. Any people like that are really super evolved and stuff, they're hiding out in caves in the Himalayas, you know. And I have stories about that I could tell sometime. They're there. Believe me, they're there. But yeah, they can come. They can arrive in flying saucers or what have you. You know, well, then people, you know, this thing that gets me. Oh well, the stars are too far away for a flying saucer to fly here. It would have to travel at the speed of light for so many years. Well, come on. If there are species that evolved, well, one, they might have a technology we don't know about, wormholes or whatever. But even if not, they're gonna. I mean, we have motherships now, you know. They're going to have bigger motherships where people can actually live and as a home. And there's going to be a chain of them that would permeate through the universe. And so the nearest mothership may not be that far from here. And then they could come, these UFOs, these flying saucers like Roswell and all that. My point is, it's within the realm of possibility. It is, you know. And then people get scared, you know. We see these things about invasions from Mars and all this stuff. Look, there's law and order in the universe too, you know. The whole thing is managed, you know. There are different quadrants, different areas that are managed by different people with sovereignty in that. But if people are that advanced with their technologies, they are reasonably advanced with their common sense, you know. They're not going to come here and do that. I'm just trying to say we are a lot safer in that regard than people tend to think. Okay. Then there's the whole idea of genetic engineering, and what are we going to do with genetic engineering? That's another important. Here's the thing: DNA maps onto the Veda. In other words, the DNA has a inherent, created through long evolution, an inherent intelligence structured within it. So if we do hybrids, if we take two different plants and link them together so the plant grows and you get a hybrid, okay, that's fine. That's like a harmonization of different DNA types. That happens when people breed, you know. But genetic engineering is a different thing. Genetic engineering is you take that infinite coherence and harmony that's there and you chop little pieces out of it. And so you really break it down. And so it's not that good of a thing. And DNA has way more intelligence than just what they used to think. And they're on to this now, but it has way more intelligence than just the order of the amino acids. There's an intelligence there. Even in the lattice structure, you know, we get that mapping of that spiral that comes in from the top, and it's that spiral contained within the DNA itself. All that maps. That principle in Vedic tradition is called Kartikeya. Kartikeya is like the commander-in-chief of the gods, if you will. He's the one that maintains the order there. And so within the structure of the DNA, there's an intelligence. We don't want to mess with that. But if stress gets in the physiology, if distortion gets in the physiology, just like distortion can get in our minds, it can get within the DNA itself, and it twangs up. And that's a source of disease. So you don't have to chop out the twanged pieces. All you have to do is relax the DNA so that those twangs and tensions go away, and the DNA starts functioning in the way it was designed to function. And that's called evolution, you know. So those are just some thoughts, and these are things that people have been asking me, and I thought I'd just try to respond to them. Please do send me your questions and comments, because I'd like to get them. And this whole podcast was basically based upon things people are worried about, things people are concerned about, things people want to know about. And I can give you the perspective of the ancient rishis. I have pundits. If I don't know it from my own knowledge, I can consult with pundits. And these guys are like veritable encyclopedias of the Veda. They've been memorizing them since they're 5 years old, And so I talk to Panditji a lot of times. So please send in your questions, and we'll give it to you straight from the ancient masters and the rishis, Just a closing thought. I think it's a good idea to keep in mind. We have all these conflicting ideas, or we want to fight for the right or whatever like that. I think a lot of times we think about veterans from World War II, for example, and how they were fighting, hitting the beach at Normandy. My goodness, just the life-threatening reality to it. But I think even more so, as huge as that is, we can add into that the fact that they didn't know if they were going to win or not. I mean, I think at least we, based on these cognitions and all this knowledge and numerology and Jyotish and just common sense and the direction things are going, knowledge of the pendulum swinging, yada, yada, we're going to be okay. We're going to be better than okay. Golden age is right around the corner. But they didn't know. Yet they risked their lives and they hit the beach. I mean, to me, that has a whole other component to it. If you stop and think. Because, we know. And so I think sometimes we look at them like, well, they knew. We don't really think that, but kind of it's in our heads. At any rate, these are a bunch of thoughts. I think they're all important. It's up to you what you do with them. I encourage you to reflect and ponder. Life in the world is not the way we have been led to believe. And I think it's up to us to take a deeper look and get some deeper insights into the nature of the whole thing. And that will happen. That is happening. We're in that phase transition to the golden age, and that's what the golden age is going to be like. All right. Well, thanks for listening. And listen, if you want to donate and help support us, go to michaelmamas.com, scroll to the bottom, in the very fine print, you'll see a place where you can click and it'll take you to a page where you can donate $10 or $1 million or whatever you want. Please help us out. It's a lot to maintain Mount Soma, and we could sure use your help. Okay, thanks for listening, and we will talk with you again next time on Ancient Secrets Revealed. You take care for now.